All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep, deep into the McDonald's E. coli outbreak.
Yeah.
We've been digging through a ton of reports from some pretty big names like CNBC, NPR, the New York Times, and even, get this, the South China Morning Post.
Oh, wow. International coverage.
Exactly. So we're going to break it all down for you, like what went down, how worried should you actually be, and what's McDonald's doing about all of this. Oh, and of course, we're going to make sure you know what to watch out for to stay safe out there.
You know, what I think is really fascinating about this whole thing is this isn't just another food safety scare, right? This is McDonald's we're talking about.
Right.
One of the biggest, global fast food chains.
Huge.
So the ripple effects of this thing are going to be massive.
Absolutely. So let's just, get right to it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
As of today, the CDC is reporting 49 confirmed cases, and get this, they're all linked to McDonald's Quarter Pounders.
Oh, wow.
And these cases, they're spread across 10 states.
10 states, that's a lot.
I know, it's crazy, and unfortunately, there's been one death reported.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was an older adult in Colorado. And to make things worse, a child was also hospitalized with, and I'm going to try to say this right, hemolytic uremic syndrome.
HUS.
Yeah, HUS.
Yeah, that's a serious complication from E. coli, you know?
Yeah.
It can lead to kidney failure. And it's really dangerous, especially for young kids and the elderly.
Right.
And another important thing here is the timeline, because that can help you figure out if you're actually at risk, right?
Right.
So the reported illnesses, they all happened between September 27th and October 11th.
Okay.
And then the CDC finally issued its alert on October 22nd.
Okay, so if you, snagged a Quarter Pounder from McDonald's during that time, especially if you were in Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Oregon, Utah, Wisconsin, or Wyoming.
Well, that's a lot of states.
I know, right? You want to be extra careful and watch out for any symptoms.
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking of symptoms, what should people be looking for? What are the signs?
Okay, so the classic signs you're going to see with an E. coli infection are fever, those awful stomach cramps, and bloody diarrhea.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, not fun. And keep in mind that the incubation period for E. coli is pretty short, just a couple of days. So if you haven't gotten sick by now, you're probably in the clear.
Okay, so that's good news for anyone who's, freaking out right now.
Right, right.
But still, 49 cases and a death, that's definitely causing some concern.
For sure.
So what has McDonald's been doing about this?
Well, first off, they pulled Quarter Pounders from about a fifth of their restaurants in the U.S., mostly in those affected regions.
Okay.
And they're also saying that they're fully cooperating with the investigations by the CDC, USDA, and the FDA.
That's good.
Yeah, and their U.S. President, Joe Erlinger, even came out publicly and reassured customers, saying that they took, quote, swift and decisive action.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Some experts are saying that just yanking the Quarter Pounder off the menu might not be enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they think that maybe entire restaurants should be closed down for a deeper investigation.
To make sure there wasn't any cross-contamination.
Exactly. So it's kind of a debate right now.
So is pulling the product really enough to keep everyone safe?
That's a really good question. But let's get down to the bottom of this whole thing.
Oh, let's get to the source.
What do investigators think caused all of this E. coli in the first place?
Well, this is where it gets a little strange. The FDA's initial investigation is pointing to onions.
Onions.
Yeah. And this is pretty unusual because usually slivered onions haven't been linked to this type of E. coli before.
Onions. That's not what I would guess.
Right. It's weird, but apparently McDonald's gets all their onions for Quarter Pounders from one single supplier in that region.
Oh, interesting.
And they do wash the onions, but washing them might only get rid of the bacteria on the surface, right? It might not be enough to clean out any contamination that's already inside.
Huh. So maybe not your average salad topping.
So while the onions are the prime suspect right now, the investigation's still going on, right? What about the beef? Was that ever considered a possible source?
The USDA is looking into the beef too, but it's trickier because they get their beef from multiple suppliers. Plus, McDonald's is saying that they cook their patties to a temperature that's high enough to kill E. coli.
Okay, so if it's not the beef and onions are a new culprit for this E. coli, then what does that mean?
Good question.
It sounds like there's still a lot of questions floating around out there.
Absolutely. It really is. And while everybody's trying to figure this whole thing out, the impact on McDonald's, it's already pretty big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, their share price, it took a real dip right after the news broke.
I bet.
Yeah, so that drop, you know, it could mean that investors are worried about some like long-term damage to McDonald's brand,
Oh, yeah.
which I mean that could end up affecting you too as a consumer, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe prices go up or they have to like change the menu or something.
Right, right.
And some analysts are even comparing this whole thing to what happened with Chipotle a few years back.
Oh, yeah, with their E. coli outbreaks.
Exactly, like 2015, 2016, that whole thing.
It took them forever to recover from that.
Yeah, they really struggled to like regain people's trust after all those incidents. It took them years to really bounce back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with McDonald's. But beyond, like, the direct impact on McDonald's, what about the wider food industry? Like, are other companies worried about this?
You know, there have been like whispers about some stock market jitters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I mean, Coca-Cola, they're McDonald's biggest beverage partner, right?
Right.
They're definitely keeping a close eye on everything that's happening.
I bet they are.
It's kind of like a domino effect, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
One thing falls and who knows what else could be affected.
Right. And speaking of Coke, they seem pretty confident that all this won't hurt their sales.
Yeah, they do, huh?
Even though McDonald's is like their biggest customer, right? Their CEO, he even came out and said publicly that they're not really worried.
I saw that, yeah. That's actually a really interesting point, though. Like, Coke's confidence, it could actually show us that brands, they might be more resilient than we think when it comes to, you know, these kinds of food safety issues.
Oh, interesting.
Like, think about it. Consumers, they kind of separate the brand from the actual, like, incident, right?
Hmm.
Especially with a company as huge as Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it shows you, like, how much they trust McDonald's to bounce back from this.
I guess so. It is pretty wild to think about how this one outbreak, it can affect the entire food industry,
Oh, for sure.
like globally,
I
right?
believe, yeah.
I mean, we even saw news reports from like Hong Kong, and they were trying to like reassure their customers that their McDonald's menus are totally fine.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Talk about like a worldwide impact.
It is a big deal.
So beyond just reacting to what's happening right now, what can we do to make like food safety systems stronger overall? Like, how do we stop this from happening again?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
Some experts are calling for like way stricter testing throughout the whole supply chain, you know, from start to finish.
Right.
And others think the key is to have better systems for tracing everything.
To track it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that we can like pinpoint where the contamination started and then contain it super fast.
Yeah.
Imagine like if we could literally track every ingredient from the farm all the way to your plate.
That would be amazing.
Right. Like it would totally change how we deal with these kinds of situations.
For sure. It sounds like there's not one easy answer, though.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, this outbreak has gotten people talking about the food we eat and how it gets to us. And those are important conversations to have.
They really are. And those conversations, they're really important for making things better, right? Like, as consumers, we have responsibility to, like, speak up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We need to, like, demand that the companies we buy from are transparent and that they're telling us what's in our food and where it comes from.
Yeah, we got to stay informed about the risks, too.
Right. Like, what ingredients are they using? Where do they get them from?
Exactly. These are the questions we should all be asking.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health.
Couldn't agree more.
So before we wrap things up here, is there anything else we should keep in mind as this whole story continues to unfold? Like, any final words of wisdom from our expert?
Yeah, you know, this whole situation, it highlights how important food safety is for everybody. You know? Not just the big companies, but all of us.
Right.
Like even simple things, right? Like washing your hands really well, making sure you cook your food to the right temperature, and storing your food the right way. Those things can really help prevent E. coli and those other like foodborne illnesses, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
It's easy to like forget about those basic things sometimes, but they really are the most important things you can do to protect yourself.
Yeah, it's true. Like, we get busy, and sometimes we just forget about those little details.
Exactly.
But they can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. So here's something to like think about. Okay. This outbreak, it kind of reminds us that even today, with all the technology we have and all the rules in place, we can always be doing more to make our food safer, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So like, what do you think? Like, what kinds of new ideas or new rules could make our food system even safer in the future?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's easy to feel kind of helpless in situations like this, but, We have power as consumers.
We do?
We can demand change, right? And we can support the companies that are really trying to prioritize food safety.
Exactly.
We can push for stricter rules, and more transparency from the food industry.
I completely agree. It's all about, like, working together to make things better.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into this McDonald's E. coli outbreak.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
Stay curious out there, stay informed, and most importantly, stay safe.